What does perfume and Moby Dick have in common? Ambergris. Ambergris is a very unique substance that comes specifically from sperm whales. And a lot of people don't really know what ambergris is. Literally, it's from the French word ambergris, which means gray amber. And it's pretty much the excrement of whales. Some people, technically we don't actually know how it comes out of whales. Some people think it's whale vomit, or it just bursts out of the whale at a certain point. So we don't really know, but it has been, people have been aware of ambergris for hundreds of years because it just kind of floats around in the ocean, and it's formed in the intestinal tract of whales because they eat cephalopods, which are squids and cuttlefish and anything that has those sharp beaks. So the rest of those animals will be digested by the whale, except for those hard parts, which I guess the whale's intestinal tract creates this gooey substance around it to keep these sharp parts from cutting the whale's insides. Then this blob, which becomes ambergris, leaves the whale at some point and floats in the ocean until it washes up somewhere. And ambergris, when it's like fresh, it smells horrible. However, when it finally dries, it becomes this very pleasant, musky scent. And people have been aware of that very pleasant scent for a long time. It's even mentioned in Moby Dick. Herman Melville describes, I believe, a dead whale with a faintly perfume-like odor. So, not recommending that you go and find dead whales to give them a whiff, but ambergris is a very, very unique substance found in a lot of high-quality perfumes, especially luxury perfumes, because for hundreds of years it has been very expensive because it's rare. So for a long time people have gone out and gone whaling for the chance of finding ambergris in these whales that they've caught. The downside is that ambergris is usually found in 10 or 5% or less of live or of whales in general. So going out and whaling isn't going to render much ambergris. Instead, historically people have just gone around the beaches and looked for clumps of ambergris. And they're usually, if they're present, easy to locate because they smell so bad. Then, once they gather enough ambergris, they let it dry out, and then they eventually turn it into perfume, or add it to perfume. Historically, the aromatic compound of ambergris, which I think is called ambrine or ambrin, it was used as an additive for perfumes to make them last longer, to have a more prominent scent. Because before that, in the 1800s and before, most perfumes were plant oils, flower oils, which are not particularly strong, but ambergris is very strong. So they used that especially, and they also had a preference for certain colors of ambergris, because the longer ambergris is sitting around out in the ocean, the more oxidized it gets exposed to oxygen, and then it becomes a darker color. Fresh ambergris is usually white, maybe a light gray, and then it becomes brown and black. And the lighter ambergris just smells better once it's dried, so that's the more expensive kind, and that is what is preferred in the perfume industry. The thing is, the use of ambergris in the perfume industry has changed quite a lot in recent years. Of course, whaling for ambergris is illegal now in most countries, and the ambergris aroma is usually not even real in most perfumes these days. Usually it's synthetic ambergris, or the main scent chemical, ambroxan, which is another very common synthetic chemical that is often used in perfume. So, the thing today, modern perfume industry, is very, very rare to find real ambergris in perfumes. If there is real ambergris, it's going to be very, very expensive because it's a rare component and it's hard to get. Then also, even things that are extracted, chemicals that are extracted from ambergris, or usually anything relating to ambergris, like ambroxan, it's usually going to be in a higher quality perfume because it's generally associated with just that luxury, that extra special something in a fragrance. So, now that you know about ambergris and ambroxan, which are kind of similar, I'll briefly go over a few important perfumes that have this particular ingredient in them. Starting with 2 Creed fragrances. This is a very, very old one from 1845. This is Flowers of Bulgaire, or Fleurs de Bulgarie. And this is primarily a rose fragrance, but it's grounded by the ambergris. And considering that it's from 1845, it makes sense that it has this very kind of old-style, historic ingredient in it. And that ambergris does a really good job of grounding those rose notes because the rose is very, very strong. Then the other Creed fragrance that has it is this. I was gifted this. This is Creed Green Irish Tweed. This is primarily a very aromatic sort of somewhat herbal, somewhat green tweed. And then again, grounding the whole thing is the ambergris, which I would argue is... Green Irish Tweed has one of the strongest ambergris notes that I've come across so far, because it's just stronger. Maybe they put more in it, just the stronger chemical. Then, a more modern edition is Invictus by Paco Rabanne. This, I would say, even though it's in the base notes, the note is there, it's definitely not a very prominent ambergris note. So if you want something that's true to form ambergris, I would recommend maybe Green Irish Tweed or something along those lines. That's not the only one. This very small sample is Baccarat Rouge 540, which is primarily a sweet, spicy saffron fragrance, but it also has the ambergris in the bottom, or the base notes, which I think gives it a very delicious warmth, because with the saffron, and I think it has some fir notes mixed in there, but the ambergris really warms it all up. It makes it a little bit more musky, more unique, and definitely considering that this is a very, very high luxury fragrance, it makes sense that this strong ambergris note is in it. So, the last one that I have is technically not ambergris, but instead ambroxan. This is not a perfume by Juliette Has a Gun. The only perfume note in this is ambroxan, which is, as I mentioned before, is the kind of ambroxan or ambrox. They take it out of the ambergris. It's the main aromatic note. It can also be made synthetically, which I believe this is completely made in a lab, so you're not really harming any whales in the process. And it's the purest form of ambroxan slash ambergris that you can get, but it isn't as musky as, Green Irish Tweed or Baccarat Rouge 540. So all of these are kind of a little bit different in the way that this gray amber is used. So it kind of depends on what your preferences are and, that sort of thing. But that's pretty much all I have to say about ambergris, a very unique whale excrement, I suppose. If you have any opinions about ambergris in the perfume industry, you can leave your comments in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.